Cosmos is a blue ocean product, which means just very simply that they create a new market space rather than competing in an existing one.
GM friends, thanks for joining DeFi-Logic's Symposium Sunday, every Sunday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. DeFi-Logic is the crypto think tank for better decisions. In this clip from today's community call, we review daily dose reports covering the Cosmos network and its native Atom token. Let's get started.
We have the MMA Monday talking on the Cosmos network and how the chain itself interacts with the competition out there. We also have the WWF Wednesday, also along the Cosmos network, but more so specifically the Atom token, which is the foundation coin there. And then we have Token Audit Thursdays, where Trill and Sloth wrote up about the interconnectivity of the system of Cosmos as a whole and how the three all connect up. So over to you guys. How did we fail for Cosmos this week?
Yeah, so I'll just start in a very basic sense, just kind of give an overview. Cosmos is a super long-term project, I would say, in the space. Basically, what we have with Cosmos is a few different components that are important to note. So we have the network itself, Cosmos Hub, which is the first blockchain that launched on the Cosmos network. We have IBC, Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, Cosmos SDK. They use the Tendermint consensus mechanism, and they have a lot of actual partnerships and actual projects that build on them in the space. A lot of people, I'm sure, are unaware of just simply things like BNB Chain, formerly Binance Smart Chain, is built on Cosmos. So that's a pretty big deal. And we're always looking at things in DeFi-Logic from the perspective of investment, right? And how to determine a good investment in terms of like use case, how they operate as a business, all that kind of stuff. And I would say that in my perspective, Cosmos is a blue ocean product, which means just very simply that they create a new market space rather than competing in an existing one, right? So if you take the analogy of blue ocean versus red ocean is red because there's a whole bunch of different products and companies and services. They're all competing in the space. They're all eating each other, so there's a lot of blood in the water. And the blue ocean is really where you want to be. You want to be in a space where there's not a lot of competition because you provide something that cannot be easily reproduced if you were gone tomorrow. And that's definitely the case with Cosmos, right? So just all the functionality that the more techie guys are going to get into in a minute for more of a in-depth view. But the big narrative that we've been talking about for the last, I think, couple weeks now is interoperability, and Cosmos lends to that. If we don't have interoperability, UX in crypto, like if we're just being honest, it sucks. How many bridges you have to use to move assets and, on-chain asset management, all that type of thing. And Cosmos definitely seeks to simplify and, create a more sustainable ecosystem in that way for crypto and blockchain overall. So just in a business sense and investment sense, definitely long-term bullish. I would just say in terms of the business sense, the coin Atom, the native token, maybe not so much just because of inflation like Sloth was talking about the other day. But, it's definitely a sustainable product and service that the space not only wants, but desperately needs. So I'll let Trill and Sloth get into some of the more technical aspects, especially like Tendermint consensus mechanism and, IBC and all that kind of stuff that I just mentioned.
All right. Yeah, I can start off with that since I'm going to go over a little bit of the analytics for the Atom token. But yeah, basically to build off of what Trevor was saying. So the Atom token basically has a few different use cases. It's used as, they call it a spam prevention mechanism. So it's used to pay gas fees, kind of, similar how ETH is used for gas on the Ethereum blockchain. And then it's also used for governance, voting, and then also for staking. So that's kind of the main use cases. So the analytics were a little difficult to pull up just because there's not a ton of use case besides like the staking and voting mechanism. But I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can kind of go over what we do have. Okay, so here, this is a Artemis dashboard, just kind of shows some overview of some different blockchains, but this is just kind of going over the price movement and market cap. This is looking 1 month back. So we see it's kind of ranging here within like the $9 and $10 mark. And then if we go back a little bit more, we can see a little bit more fluctuation with it kind of trending downwards. And then same with the 6 month, just due to the recent bear market, everything was kind of trending in the same direction. But then longer term, we can see a little bit more of a positive movement on the token overall. With, I believe, the all-time high price was around $44 and all-time low was a little bit over $1 during the big COVID crash. And then the market cap sitting at about 2.7 billion right now, as opposed to all-time high, which was around 12.5, 13 billion. And then if we go over here, let's see, we can see, so this is the main dashboard for Atom Scan, which is which is the main kind of blockchain analyzer here. So we can see which block it's at. We can see how much atoms actually staked. So we see 246 million out of 355 is staked. So it's about 70%, so 69. So it's gone down a little bit. So there is that 14.8% inflation currently, which is a bit high, especially when we look at the staking yields at 19.22%. So, it's really only about a 4.5% yield that you're getting from staking the Atom tokens. And the inflation is kind of a variable rate, so it kind of goes between 7 to 20% inflation a year. It just kind of depends. And then if we go here, we can kind of see the total volume. This is just looking at the past year. And then if we go back a little bit more, or actually look at more recently, we can see volume here, total number of transactions. And then here, so these are the total accounts, or basically the total number of wallets who are currently holding the Atom token. So the blue portion just kind of shows the daily number of accounts created, and then the green just shows the total amount of the wallets with the Atom coin. And then here, this just kind of goes over the different assets which are on Cosmos Network. These values are a little bit skewed, as we can see. Obviously, there's not $1.8 trillion worth of Kava, so I'm not really sure how they got these numbers. And then here, go here. This is the supply versus the staked amount. So we see the supply slowly going up as per the inflation rates. And then this is the amount that's actually staked. So we can kind of see it both trending in the same direction, kind of floating between that 68 to 70% over the last few months. And then here we see the actual rewards versus the inflation rate. So you can see it kind of it's a little variable, right? So in the past year, it's kind of gone between the 17 to even got up to 23% for the rewards. Inflation was kind of between 12 to 16%. So it's pretty significant difference here. I think the biggest one was here about when the inflation was at 15.8%, and then the rewards were 23. So, it was about an 8% yield overall, which is not terrible. And then this just shows the top validators for the Atom coin here. So we see Coinbase number 1, and then SG1 is in second place. So SG1, they are basically the largest non-custodial node infrastructure provider for the Cosmos chain. And then this is just kind of a cool little visual dashboard. It's called Mint Scan. It's still kind of in the beta phase, so it's a little bit glitchy, but it just kind of shows an overview of all the different chains which are currently connected to the Cosmos network. And then here, if we go here to the IBC network, it's a cool little visual of all the different transactions. So this is looking at last 30-day period, so you can actually see the transactions on the different applications and chains happening, which is pretty cool. And then yeah, we can also see the dev activity on each chain as well. It shows the monthly commits, just pulling from the GitHub repositories. And then there was actually a proposal that was put in, if we see here, back in April, for a burn proposal, just to kind of combat that inflation rate. Doesn't look like it's actually gone anywhere yet, since there wasn't actually a vote put in place. So that's something to keep watch on, definitely. And that's pretty much all I have for my portion. And then if Trill wants to get into the actual token side of things.
Yeah, I'll go over a few things. Touch over the points that kind of Pepe had talked about with the SDK, IBC, things like that. You first go over the history, just like short, brief history of Cosmos. It was founded by a Swiss organization called the Interchain Foundation. So that's kind of like where they get the concept of like the entirety of the Cosmos network. They call it the interchain, as you saw when Pepe shared his screen. When you go to the Cosmos network or the Cosmos page, it says "Welcome to the interchain." The two main members were Jaquan and another member named Ethan Butchman, Jaquan later stepped down to work on another project that necessarily didn't really go anywhere. And then I'll share my screen to go over like the technical components. All right, so with the Cosmos network, there's three layers. We have the application layer, the consensus layer, and then the network layer. Consensus, as Pepe stated, is the Tendermint consensus, which is a type of consensus for proof of stake. I'll go over that a little bit more, but the entirety of the engine is called Comet BFT, BFT for Byzantine fault tolerance, which is basically kind of like the issue that blockchain solved, which is like the 51%, where if half of the network were to go down, what is the reliability of the network, things like that. The Cosmos SDK is the application portion of the entirety of the network. So how Cosmos works is you build with the SDK and Comet BFT, consensus, networking portion is kind of like already part of the network. So you just kind of build the application, and I'll go over a little bit that more because Cosmos is an application specific blockchain instead of like Ethereum, which is virtual machine like blockchain. But yeah, these are the three parts to Cosmos. Well, there's a little bit more. It's a little weird because like there's multiple portions that are kind of have like smaller parts that make up that portion and things like that. So like Pepe stated, BNB built on Cosmos SDK. And then how the different blockchains communicate is using something called the IBC or Inter Blockchain Communication Protocol. This was later introduced with something that they call the Stargate upgrade, but it just allowed Cosmos to, reach the interoperability that they like tried to aim for within their white papers. I said the concept of the interchain, if you go to their page, and the Cosmos SDK, application specific blockchain. So when creating a chain with the Cosmos SDK, this blockchain has a specific task, and the task is just going to be to manage that application. Whereas with virtual machine blockchains, they're managed by the smart contracts, and as I believe I stated last week, smart contracts are very linear. They're good for certain tasks, but very linear. So as far as like the flexibility and things like that of smart contracts is not necessarily too great. And as also Pepe stated, that kind of hinders the UX and the usability, interoperability. So that's kind of what Cosmos addressed. And that's pretty much, I believe, all I have to say. I mean, we have the three layers. We have the Comet BFT, which makes up the consensus and networking layer. the Cosmos SDK, which is the application portion, which is where developers actually develop. Yeah, that's Cosmos.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Drill. Thanks, Sloth, and thanks, Pepe. It's a good roundup of the Cosmos chain, the Atom token, and how the interoperability works. Definitely something to look at for the long term.
Join us next week in Discord for Symposium Sunday at DeFiLogic.com.